quick question. Who should Congress serve?
The people, of course. And by the people, let's be specific, the American people.
Oh, good. And another quick question. Who should corporations serve?
Their owners. And when we're talking about publicly traded companies, that means their shareholders. And of course, if they want to stay in business, they better serve their customers as well.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Now the harder question. Who are the companies and the Congress actually serving and why?
It's a great question. Largely, they're serving themselves, right? When we're talking about, insider trading with members of Congress, folks who come in with not very much money and they leave millionaires with multiple mansions in multiple states, you kind of have to, put two and two together that they're the ones that are serving their own self-interest. When we're talking about public policymakers like Janet Yellen or Jerome Powell or Gary Gensler at the SEC, they're serving their worldview, right? By pushing ESG mandates, boards of directors, diversity quotas. This serves their public policy preferences. This doesn't serve customers. This doesn't serve the American people. It doesn't serve the public. They're really pushing their public policy preferences, the Davos worldview, if you will, onto the American people against our will.
Well, then who's serving the American people?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, you're doing a great service to the American people by educating. Come to Stop Corporate Tyranny. There's lots of leaders that are engaged in the process of pushing back on woke capitalism, pushing back on ESG, that's environment, social, and corporate governance nonsense, because we know, again, this isn't in the best interest of shareholders. This is in the best interest of activist investors like Larry Fink, who try and dictate corporate action with passive investment money, and it really has to stop.
Well, we've done the polling. The real American people, the investors, they don't want this ESG stuff. It's the C-suite of companies, the Congress pushing that. But who else wins from this?
Well, again, Larry Fink and BlackRock is probably the biggest winner, right? Because, again, they're the largest asset manager in the world, $10 trillion in assets under management. And he uses that money to influence corporate behavior. So he can put environmental mandates on corporations that cripple shareholders. He can put dissident climate change activists on boards like he did last year at Exxon. There's now 3 board members of Exxon whose stated goal is to bankrupt the company to advance their worldview on the environment. And again, who's another big winner in all of this, especially when it comes to the regulatory regime, the big business of Larry Fink teaming up with Jerome Powell and Gary Gensler? China. Because when the SEC, for example, upheld the NASDAQ rule, which requires board diversity of having a woman on your board and an underrepresented minority or an LGBTQ member, guess who they exempted? Chinese companies, right? Because when we put ESG standards on American businesses, that increases the cost of doing business here at home. But guess what? There's no environmental concern in China. Give me a break on the social issues. I mean, they're enslaving minority Muslim populations over there while Wall Street turns a blind eye. So China is the biggest victor in all of our silly ESG pushes at home that harm American investors and help the Chinese Communist Party. It's really, really sad.
It is sad, and you're right. Well, Justin, one of the ways we can stop this is a new effort to break the gravy train by ending congressional insider trading. We don't see why government officials should be able to profit from the policies that they're forcing on the American people. Do you have a thought?
The timing has never been better. You're absolutely right that they shouldn't be able to invest in companies that they're then influencing with information that's not publicly available. You and I would be thrown in the clink if we did anything even close to what Nancy Pelosi and her cohorts do. So again, the timing is right. The American people see it. And frankly, it's from the left and the right. This should be bipartisan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Justin, so much for all the good work that you're doing.
Nancy Pelosi has made a fortune worth more than $100 million, all while working on a government salary. How? How are she and other politicians becoming millionaires while supposedly working for us in Congress? The corruption is deeply disturbing. Democrats and Republicans alike are pigging out on Pelosi perks. Politicians in Washington are giving themselves big salaries, big pensions, and big benefits. And if that wasn't bad enough, they're making millions on Wall Street with insider trading. Economic War Room has just released its expose of this outrage. And we've launched a nationwide campaign so every American can take action to demand an end to Pelosi perks. Go to stopdcgreed.com, and in less than 60 seconds, you can tell lawmakers to stop the corruption and stop DC greed.